in, they have to come at a particular angle, because the atmosphere is something real. If they come at too shallow an angle, they would bounce right back out into space. If they come at too steep an angle, they would end up, because of the friction, being burned to nothing. So there is something out there that remained after the floodwaters came down. So God now has the landmass surrounded by some water, this big expanse we now call the atmosphere, and water further out still. That's what he does in this particular section. And verse 7, God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So now we have two bands of water, the immediate one on the earth and the one beyond the atmosphere. But still, the stage is not fully set for what the Godhead has in mind. The creature that he has in mind, humanity, people like you and like me, cannot live in this condition. So some other things have to happen. Verse 9. And God said, let the waters under the heaven, that's under the atmosphere, be gathered together unto one place. And let what? Let the dry land appear, and it was so. For the first time now, we can see some dry land. Because the waters have been gathered together in what we now call oceans and seas, and now there is some dry land. Because the creature that God has in mind is not going to live underwater. So God has already created the atmosphere. Now he creates the dry land by piling up the waters into seas and oceans. And for the first time in the creation story, you can actually see the land. The darkness is gone. The bulk of the water is gone. And now even the water that's left is drawn aside, and we can see dry land. Because God had no intention of creating us with gills so that we breathe underwater. He had another plan in mind. And then we come to verses 11 and 12. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, and the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed shall be in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And it goes on to talk a little more about creating plant life. Why was this an important part of the preparation? God was going to create creatures, human beings, you, me, who would breathe in oxygen and would breathe out what? Carbon dioxide. Now, if he just brought us on the scene like that, after a while, we would have no oxygen to breathe in, the atmosphere would be filled with carbon dioxide, and we would die. So what does our wise, omnipotent God do? He creates plant life with a system called photosynthesis, which takes in carbon dioxide, processes through photosynthesis, and kicks out what? Oxygen. So all of this, God didn't need plant life. All of this was for us, because God is making preparation for this special creature. And so before we come on the scene to poison ourselves with carbon dioxide, he provides a plant life so that when we come, we have oxygen to breathe in. And when we breathe out the poisonous carbon dioxide, the plants take it, reconvert it into oxygen, and so we have a constant supply. Why did God make the plant life? Among other things, to provide us with the oxygen that we would need, but as we shall see, also for food. My central point, beloved, is that every single thing that God did during creation week, the ultimate purpose was to set things up for you and for me. We were in his mind and on his thoughts when he acted in creation. We are not therefore just a part of the creative activity. We were the ultimate purpose behind all the other things that he did. And so now, he creates the sun and the moon, verses 14 to 16, signs for days and years. We're not deliberate on that too much. And then we go to day 5, verses 20 and 21. Because up to this point, there is no life form. We do have the land mass, we have the water, we have the plant life, we have the atmosphere, we have all those things, but there's no animal life up to this point. And so let's see what happens as we take a look at verses 20 and 21. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Out of the waters come water creatures and air creatures. So now we have animals in the water, we have animals in the atmosphere, but the creature that God has in mind is not going to live in the water. He's not going to wing his way through the atmosphere. So there's still need for another level of companionship. And so we go for day 6, verses 24 and 25. God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, creeping thing, beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so. So the land animals have now come, because they will be the true physical companions of the human beings that he has in mind. They will not swim in the ocean, they will not fly through the air, they'll be on land. So here we now have land creatures. So look at the things that God has provided. Light, an atmosphere, plant life to provide food, and also to recycle the carbon dioxide that we will give out. We have creatures in the water, creatures in the air, creatures on land. The stage is now set. And in all of this, God says, it is good. And then he said, verses 26 and 27, let us do what? Make man. Let's do what we really came down here to do in the first place. Let us put the finishing touches on. Let's do what we have made all this preparation for. Let's do it now. Let's make these creatures in our image, in our likeness, so that we can relate to them and they to us in a way the rest of creation cannot. When he was through it, I didn't say it was good. He said it was very good. The seventh-day Sabbath is in large measure celebrated as a memorial of creation. And we'll come to that in a little while. But if we stop at the creation aspect, we are missing a lot of what God has in mind. So go to chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which he had created and made. After coming to the culmination of the creative activity, creating man and woman in another part of the sixth day, God now rests from his labors. He celebrates a job well done. But the marvelous thing about it is that the Godhead could have celebrated on their own without us. But they invited Adam and Eve to celebrate with them. Amen. And throughout the ages, he has continued to invite us to celebrate with him. I'd like us to note very clearly that the first Sabbath that Adam and Eve celebrated, they had